This is Michael Popok. It's after dark, but do you know where your legal AF is? Donald Trump is conducting his own shadow foreign policy, government in exile for all to see in the public, holding court literally in Mar-a-Lago while he brings over right-wing dictators like Viktor Orban, and he has frequent communications and contacts with Vladimir Putin. They're not talking about the weather. They're undermining American foreign policy. We only have one president at a time. In fact, we have a law that says that. It's called the Logan Act, and Donald Trump is apparently violated it. We're going to break it all down for you the only way we know how. Without blowing smoke or sunshine, where? Legal AF, the podcast. Take a listen.
Let's talk about kind of the crimes that Donald Trump has not yet been charged with, but if he is not elected, and we think that Vice President Kamala Harris should be the one who wins, but I don't want to get complacent here at all, that Donald Trump could be charged with, and the active crimes that we're just kind of learning about, like these communications with Vladimir Putin in violation of lots of federal laws. In the new book by Bob Woodward, it's believed that Donald Trump has had at least 7 communications with Vladimir Putin. We've covered before Donald Trump saying, I speak to Putin a lot. Like, he's out there saying it, even though he's denying Bob Woodward's book. He's been quoted on Fox and in his speeches. I speak to him. I speak to him all the time. I spoke to him about this. He told me this. We did whole videos where Donald Trump has, said those things before. This has never happened before in the history of the United States. Like, you wouldn't have former President Barack Obama or George W. Bush or Jimmy Carter or George H.W. Bush or whoever undermining the safety and security of our country, of NATO, of the international order, the way Donald Trump did. So I want you to talk, Popok, about the laws that are being violated here. But there's an international law that's being violated here as well in working behind the scenes to prop up Putin's unlawful invasion of Ukraine and what Putin is trying to do. And look, we painted a grim but accurate picture of what Trump wants domestically. What Trump and Putin want in terms of an international order is Putin to take over Europe. That's Putin's vision. Putin wants Poland next. Putin wants Eastern Europe, all of it next. Then he wants Europe next. That's his vision. That's what he wants. He wants the destruction of NATO. He wants us to suffer and die. And that's what Donald Trump wants as well. He wants a Russia-led global world. So, Popok, break that down if you can. I should also mention, too, that we also learned from Bob Woodward's book that that Donald Trump was giving Putin COVID tests while we didn't have COVID tests and while Americans were dying. He made sure to rush those COVID tests over to Russia and to Putin and to back channel that. I mean, how pathetic, how treasonous and traitorous. But Popok, break it down.
Yeah. Let me start from the international, then I'll come back into the United States component of it. Donald Trump is propping up and supporting right-wing dictatorships around the country at the expense of democracy. He's supposed to be the leader. Listen to these words as a reminder, Trump, leader of the free world. And instead, through his actions, through the establishment of a shadow government, which is, the New York Times talked about it like it was a normal thing today in the New York Times, a shadow government, a government in exile. He props up the Viktor Orbans of Hungary of the world, the Putins of the world, the North Korea dictators of the world, because they look to him and they get reinforcement and they get just enough personal embrace by Donald Trump so they can use it to crush dissent within their own countries and stay in power. And that is Donald Trump's the dirty little secret or byproduct of Trumpism and Donald Trump is that he is actually propping up dictatorships around the world to crush dissent, to crush voting rights and women's rights, just like he's doing here in the United States. And he uses Mar-a-Lago. This is all in today's New York Times. He's using Mar-a-Lago as his State Department to meet with foreign powers who feel they have to go and genuflect to him and kiss his ring and other anatomical parts of his in order to get what they want. The head of Finland, knowing that Donald Trump is crazy for cuckoo for cocoa nuts or whatever it is, Cocoa Puffs, against NATO, against our alliances that are in place for such a good reason to support democracy, When he was up for the vote for NATO, he felt he had to go in order to get Donald Trump not to object to Finland coming into NATO. It just shows you how warped the rest of the world needs to operate because of Donald Trump. And no other former president ever tried to wield this power. Well, first of all, we don't normally have a former president who lost one-time loser who decides he wants to be a two-time loser, so that's unique. And then, of course, I don't blame our allies or our frenemies going to meet with Donald Trump, the Viktor Orbáns of the world, the Putins of the world having phone conversations, because there's a chance that he could win. It's only two people running. And so they're making a calculated bet what's good for their country. The revelations in the book about Putin just shows me that it's not just Putin. It's the 10 phone calls or whatever it is to Putin when he hasn't been in power. It's all the other phone calls to Viktor Orban and holding court with him, literally in the courtyard of Mar-a-Lago and others. And what he's doing is he's conducting his own foreign policy. Well, we have a little thing called the Constitution that even this right-wing MAGA Supreme Court is all hot and bothered under the collar about core constitutional functions of a president. Oh, there's ones that only they're listed right there in Article 2. Well, you know what's in Article 2? We only have one president at one time. We only have one president who's empowered to conduct foreign policy and enter into treaties and have communications. And behind that, we've got the Logan Act. So as long as Donald Trump was pulling that 1700s book off his shelf, where Stephen Miller was for him, he should go look up that one, because right next to that is the Logan Act, the Alien Sedition Act, which says that you can't conduct your own foreign policy. And we know that everything Donald Trump is telling Putin, whatever it is at odds and against American foreign policy and the interests of the Biden administration, and therefore against the American will. Because we voted in a guy and a person, an administration, to handle our foreign policy and set our course. And we don't need Donald Trump undercutting us like a double agent or a secret spy, undermining us. I'll give one example. Trump, this is to put it mildly, the Trump view of Ukraine and Putin and Russia and the American official position are 180 degrees away from each other. The official American position, as it should be, is that Ukraine is a sovereign country and we don't like aggressors like Putin rolling in there and taking 40% of the country and saying mine. Because, and you said Poland, I happened to run into, because they were renting Airbnb next to me, next to my office building in New York. So I met these 5 really nice guys. Shout out to the 5 nice guys from Poland who were here visiting on vacation. And we had a detailed conversation about stuff. And one of it was they sided with the Democratic side. The one guy said, I got to buy my wife some Kamala stuff before I'll go back to Poland. And they are scared shitless about Putin rolling through Ukraine, the American reaction to that, if Trump's in office, and Poland next, who's a NATO ally and, of course, part of the European Union. They are legitimately worried, and they should be. So now we go to the revelations that were in the book. And let me just say this out loud so people don't know it. Ever since Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein broke the story of the last criminal presidency in All the President's Men, go watch the movie also, for the Washington Post, every book, every expose, investigative reporting that he has done, with or without Carl Bernstein, is accurate. He has never had to do a retraction. Every line in his book is corroborated 3 or 4 ways to Sunday, or he doesn't run with it. And at the end, history has proven that Bob Woodward, whatever he says happened. And very rarely, even in Trump's case, they're not denying any of it. They're not saying the phone calls didn't happen. They're not saying, well, we had a phone call, but it wasn't about what you thought, or we didn't send the COVID strategic assets to our enemy. They're not saying that. You just get Stephen Chung with his, he put it into ChatGPT. Give me a nasty comment to make against Bob Woodward, and out came, it should be in the bargain basement bin of a bookstore, or it should be in case you can't find toilet paper. I mean that's all they got, because they can't deny it. This is similar to when Donald Trump doesn't have the ability to actually, with facts or evidence or law, to deny something, he just doesn't. And that's what we're going to see when we get to the Jack Smith section of this, about how Judge Chutkan has set a trap for Donald Trump that he is going to step in. And we'll talk about what new information we're going to get again before the election about the crimes that Donald Trump committed against the American people. I can't keep stressing this enough. I think that's the common theme for me today. These acts that we're talking about Donald Trump aren't against Democrats. These are against American people, your neighbor, you, your family, your people that are in your life, people who you don't even know, but that you should have compassion for. This is who Donald Trump is out to get. And if you think, well, I went through the list of all the entities and groups that Donald Trump is attacking: transgender, LGBTQ, no, I'm not that. Black and brown, no, I'm not that. Haitians, no, definitely not that. Oh, I seem to be fine. I got a wake up call, and this is not for our audience. This is for the broader audience that we're addressing. I got a wake up call for you. Today it's them. Tomorrow it's you.
You know, our Gen Z reporter, Adam Mockler, was at the Butler, Pennsylvania Trump event and was asking people there, who would you rather have lead the United States, Vladimir Putin or Vice President Kamala Harris? And mostly all of the people he spoke to at the Trump event said Vladimir Putin, and they were perfectly okay with Vladimir Putin running the United States of America. You know, and again, you think about the types of things that Donald Trump is saying in this campaign. He's going to suspend the Constitution. He's saying it. It's not like I found some email that was hidden and the needle in the haystack and whoa. No, he's saying it in most of his traveling fascist circus events that he calls rallies. We heard him earlier talk about invoking a 1798 law to round up people, not just people without documentation, but also people who are here lawfully. And also you think, you know, if you think that you're a white Christian and it's not going to happen to you, go back and look at history. First, it happened to this group, then it happened to this group, and then it happened to me. You don't even have to look that far back at history. Look at what J.D. Vance was saying. He was criticizing Italian and Irish immigrants in the past 2 years, as well. So all they have to do is have some hook regarding ancestry, and Donald Trump talks about genes and good genes and bad genes, aka eugenics, which is what Hitler used. They're coming for you. You know, for anyone who goes, well, I'm a first generation immigrant, I'm a second generation immigrant, so that's not happening to me. That's them. I'm here. The first people he's going after, he's going to look at skin color. He sees no difference between people who are here with lawful status and people who are here, not here with documentation. He sees no distinction in his own mind. He's coming for you. It's out there in the open. And then he's saying he's supporting Vladimir Putin, and he's saying Putin is a great guy. And he's talked about destroying NATO. And to your point, Popok, then the New York Times just normalizes this like this is just some election between Bob Dole and Bill Clinton or Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, who have nuances in discussions over what is the biggest threat, but recognize generally the threats that exist to democracy. And I can tell you that having been at a hospital for a very long time during the birth process and the post-birth process and everything like that, watching the TV here and seeing the types of coverage that exists over and over again, it both sides this, you would have no clue about any of this. And so that's why for you, the legal AFers, you all need to go out there and you need to let people know what's going on.
Welcome back. That's a show we do, sitting at the intersection of law and politics with analysis and commentary like no other. Find out what 40 million people a month already know, that Legal AF alone is the home of law and politics commentary and analysis like no other. If you like it that much, we're on the MeidasTouch network, but MeidasTouch and Legal AF are doing a collaboration. What else? Legal AF MTN. The chief curator, if you will, bringing you law and politics analysis and commentary like you've come to expect, and the quality. But over on Legal AF MTN, everything Legal AF is there. The podcast is there. The hot takes are there. The commentary is there. New shows like Unprecedented are there. Come on over to Legal AF MTN and free subscribe as well. And if you like our podcast, then you're going to love Wednesdays and Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern time for our YouTube recording of the podcast, and then picking us up on all the audio podcast platforms. Help us with the show. Help us. Leave comments, leave reviews, watch and listen, all of that. Legal AF, the podcast. So until my next Legal AF, in whatever format, on which either channel, this is Michael Popok, and I'm reporting. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.